What's happening around the world?
And what's happening here at home. A very good evening. You're watching Primetime News on TV1. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Rochelle Thamodara.
And I'm Sandru Ferdinando. Let's take a look at your headlines for tonight.
Insufficient evidence to prove charges filed under ICCPR. Natasha and Bruno released by court. BASL warns against interference in judicial functions following President's judicial cannibalism comments. Sumandiran suspects attempt to bring constitutional amendment on term extension by influencing the judiciary. Supplementary estimate for over 8 billion rupees submitted. Government says funds are to accelerate rural development projects. Opposition alleges attempt to fund election campaign. 41,000 rupees to be included in Korean job list. A new revelation in Parliament. SLFP Executive Committee gives permanent posts to Nimal Siripala and Duminder. Frontline socialists lead formation of new alliance based on exit IMF concept.
First up in news here at home. The 4th Magistrates Court decided to release social media activists Natasha Edrisuriya and Bruno Divakara after the Attorney General advised that there was insufficient evidence to charge them with making statements harmful to religious harmony.
On the 28th of May last year, the Criminal Investigation Department apprehended social media activist and comedian Natasha Edrisuriya at the Katunaika airport. She faced allegations of disrupting religious harmony through a public performance. Subsequently, the Criminal Investigation Department informed the 4th Magistrates Court that they were investigating the charges under the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights or ICCPR and the Penal Code. Bruno Divakara, the former owner of the social media platform that published Natasha Edrisuriya's statement related to the investigation, was also arrested on the 31st of May the same year. While Bruno Divakara was granted bail by the Magistrates Court on the 21st of June, Natasha Edrisuriya did not receive the same opportunity from the Magistrates Court. Consequently, she sought bail from the High Court, which granted it on the 5th of July 2023. Subsequently, the Criminal Investigation Department sought advice from the Attorney General regarding the case. The Attorney General opined that there was insufficient evidence to charge the two suspects with hate speech based on the ICCPR Act, the Penal Code and other relevant laws. In light of this advice, 4th Magistrate Kosala Senadira ordered the release of both Natasha Edrisuriya and Bruno Divakara from this case.
The Bar Association of Sri Lanka issued a strong statement today emphasizing the importance of respecting the judiciary's independence and upholding the rule of law. This comes in response to a recent statement made by President Ranil Wickremesinghe in Parliament yesterday regarding the Supreme Court's ruling on the Gender Equality Bill.
The Bar Association of Sri Lanka issued a statement today reaffirming its commitment to upholding the rule of law and safeguarding judicial independence. While the public can hold different opinions, the BASL statement criticizes attempts by the legislature or executive to influence the court's decision. The Bar Association firmly believes that the judiciary should be allowed to function independently and free from any kind of external pressure. The BASL views recent parliamentary discussions referring to the judicial cannibalism and the formation of a committee to review the court's decision as efforts to undermine judicial independence. They argue such actions aim to force through a bill deemed unconstitutional. The Bar Association considers the President's statement a threat to the court and the entire judicial system. Establishing a committee to review the Supreme Court's ruling is seen as a dangerous precedent. The statement concludes by stressing the responsibility of both the executive and legislative branches to respect the judiciary's role. The Bar Association of Sri Lanka warns that any interference could threaten the rule of law in Sri Lanka.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe told Parliament that a select committee must be appointed to look into the Supreme Court's determination on Gender Equality Bill. The matter was a point of lengthy discussion in the Parliament.
I'd like to ask about judicial cannibalism. Is the Supreme Court engaging in cannibalism? What does cannibal mean? It refers to those who eat human flesh. Therefore, judicial cannibalism refers to a legal process involving metaphorical or literal destruction. Please allow me to continue without interruptions. We have ample time to discuss this matter, including during lunch if necessary. We have a competent and progressive chairperson who can maintain order, so there is no need to worry. When I raise questions about the President, please refrain from interrupting. I respectfully ask the Minister of Justice, is the Supreme Court in our country engaging in judicial cannibalism?
මේක පිටු 46ක නඩු තීන්දුවක් මේ පනතෙන් හඳුන්වන්නේ සංක්‍රාන්තිකයන්ගේ අයිතිවාසිකම් ආරක්ෂා.
There is a 46-page judgment. The bill is introduced to protect the rights of transgender individuals. However, the Supreme Court judges identified a problem. The bill does not define who qualifies as a transgender person. In fact, there is no international definition of transgender. According to Article 12(2) of our Constitution, there is a distinction between sex and gender. Sex refers to biological differences indicating whether a person is male or female by birth. Gender, on the other hand, is a more recent term that encompasses socially constructed roles and identities. Some people may transition from female to male, male to female, or not fit into these categories at all. This evolving subject lacks a clear definition even in modern dictionaries. The Supreme Court faced the issue that Article 12(2) of the Constitution only addresses discrimination based on sex without mentioning gender. Therefore, the court suggests that the Constitution's Article 12(2) needs to be amended to include gender discrimination. The law proposes the establishment of a Gender Equity Council. However, despite this provision, the Supreme Court noted that the law does not present a clear governmental policy framework for addressing these issues.
ඒ කියන්නේ ප්‍රතිපත්තිමය රාමුවක් මේ පනතේ ඉදිරිපත් කරලා නැහැ කියලා ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨාධිකරණය කියනවා. මම ඇහුවේ බොහොම වැදගත් ප්‍රශ්නයක්. මම ඇහුවේ
I have a very important question. The President used the term judicial cannibalism. Could you please explain what judicial cannibalism means? Also, can you clarify whether using such a term to criticize the judiciary is appropriate?
මොකක්ද කියලා මම එහන්නේ. Cannibalization කියලා සාමාන්‍ය වචන.
When considering the term cannibalization in its general sense, it conveys the meaning intended by the leader of the opposition. However, in legal terminology, particularly within legal jargon and the specific vocabulary used in the law, cannibalization refers to encroaching upon somebody else's authority. This means attempting to usurp the powers of legislature by the judiciary. Therefore, it can be understood that there is an effort to forcibly draw power away from its rightful domain.
තේරුම් ගන්න පුළුවන් තත්ත්වය.
මම මේ කියන්නේ What I am saying is that using the term judicial cannibalism to describe the country's executive is absolutely wrong. I firmly believe that we should strongly condemn the use of such terms even at this moment. I don't think there is a judicial decision here that could be considered a challenge to the power of Parliament. Then, according to the statement made by the President yesterday, it seems that we do not accept the Supreme Court's recommendation. This is a very serious matter based on your statement about this decision. It appears that a very fair and technically accurate ruling has been given.
Yesterday, the President came and said, we don't have to follow this determination. This is a very serious trend that he is pushing. The reason we suspect is that very soon they are going to be introduced to this House a piece of legislation to amend the term of the President and the term of Parliament to extend it to 6 years, from 5 years to 6 years. And Article 83B, which we couldn't amend in the 19th Amendment because that in itself would have required a referendum, says beyond 6 years. But the President is actually occupying a space to complete the term of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, which was for 5 years. In case Supreme Court determines that bill also to require a referendum in addition to a 2/3 majority, the President is now paving the way not to comply with that determination that might come from the Supreme Court and to pass it with a 2/3 majority by bribing the MPs to complete their one full term, to have their pension, etc. and so on. So this is the reason why. It's nothing to do with gender equality. This is the reason why, and this is a very dangerous trend that has commenced in this Parliament. Okay. And as Speaker, you need to be very careful about this. The cannibalism thing is not about encroaching into another person's territory. I think he said it in the context of eating their own judgments. He cited some judgments and said they're eating their own judgments. I think it's in that context that he said it's cannibalism. Unfortunate use of the word, I agree. He shouldn't have used that word. But the Parliament has to comply with the constitution. It's not the president or the judiciary. The constitution very clearly says once a determination comes, that must be complied with. Otherwise it doesn't become law. Even if the speaker signs it, it doesn't become law. So that's a very dangerous trend that has been commenced, and it has been done yesterday also with an ulterior motive of something that is to come in the future.
දරු සුමන්දිරම් මන්ත්‍රීතුමා වගේ මේ කැනිබලිසම් කියන එකට මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ ඉන්න
As MP Sumandiran mentioned, the term cannibalism can have 225 interpretations in this parliament of 225 members. What exactly the president meant by this term is what I want to clarify at this moment. Secondly, at no point has the president stated or suggested extending the term of this parliament or the president's term. We have been given a mandate by the people for 5 years. Once these 5 years are up in August of the coming year, we will not remain in parliament under that mandate for even a single day beyond that period. Regardless of whether we hold positions as MPs or ministers, we will not stay beyond our mandate.
Judicial cannibalism.
Judicial cannibalism refers to the judicial murderer. Here is the translation.
A supplementary estimate to take funds worth rupees 8.75 billion under the control of the president was tabled to the parliament today. The Ministry of Finance said that only a transfer of expenditure heads allocated through the budget was done through this.
However, the opposition alleges that this is an amount allocated for expenses to please various parties with the aim of achieving victory in the upcoming election.
The Ministry of Finance said that the funds allocated under the President from the supplementary estimate is to be used to accelerate development projects including rural roads, hospitals, schools and houses. The Ministry of Finance pointed out that these funds were previously earmarked for the upliftment of Provincial Council Vocational Education, national branding of Sri Lanka, the establishment of the Anuradhapura Mahavihara University, the establishment of an international Buddhist university in Anuradhapura, the construction of a museum of Buddhist civilization in Kandy, and the promotion of research and development activities. Today, the Ministry of Finance requested the Parliament's approval to change the expenditure headings and put the sum of 8.75 billion rupees under the coordination and supervision of the President for the coordination and supervision of development initiatives.
This is an election period. The provincial council elections have not been postponed. The Supreme Court has ordered the provincial council elections to be held as well. At a time very close to the presidential election, making such changes to the expenditure heads for development projects is a violation of the election law. A few months ago, they allocated funds for community committees. The Election Commission intervened and prevented this. What I am saying is that the expenditure head can be changed. However, that is an entirely separate process. However, the funds cannot be allocated. Officials of the Election Commission need to know about what is being discussed here. That is my argument. Honorable Speaker, the transfer of some of the expenditure headings to be spent through the President's office to some other expenditure headings is called a supplementary estimate, which is a new expenditure. We are making this proposal to accelerate projects that were halted, such as water schemes and rural roads. Is the opposition saying that we halt the fulfillment of urgent needs of the rural and estate communities? Are we supposed to halt all these projects just because there is an upcoming election? As the government, we are ready to serve the people of the country up until the very end. What is this? The election dates will be proclaimed in another 32 days. And why would they need more funds at this point? What can they do with these funds with only 1 month in their hands? Is it even practical? No, it is not. We demand the Election Commission to conduct an investigation into this. It is said that the funds will be allocated only for the construction of roads in rural areas. Then why are the funds being allocated to the President? There is no need for that. The funds should have been allocated to the Ministry of Highways and Road Development or the Ministry of Provincial Councils and Local Government. Those are the ministries in charge of these development activities. That is not what is being done. The President is taking the funds under his control. This is being done for the election. This is a complete cover-up. Anyone can see this. Now the entire UNP is being maintained by funds of this expenditure head. Once Ruwan Wijewardena, Akila Viraj, Rangi Bandara, Sagla Ratnayaka and other office bearers of the UNP are appointed Vice President, Secretary, Assistant Secretary and Coordinating Secretary of the party, the best vehicles of the ministers will be allocated for them. P. Harrison from Anuradhapura recently visited the Ministry of Agriculture and picked out a good vehicle for himself. He even got into an argument with the officials because they did not let him take it with him. This is the reality. 8.75 billion rupees are being allocated for this. They are passing funds for the election. This is being done at a point where the general public has been extremely pressurized by the tax burden and prices of commodities. They have also allocated 1.206 billion rupees for 19 opposition MPs. Yesterday, MP Kiryala said that this is bribery. As much as offering bribery is wrong, accepting it is also equally wrong. This is the game that is being played. It was stated that the opposition will make a complaint to the Election Commission about the financial bills. We are disappointed that the opposition does not even possess any general knowledge with regard to this. All these funds were approved by the Parliament. The Committee on Public Finance approved this after a thorough explanation was made. 17 of the Sajid faction has come forward and taken funds. This is the issue. In the near future, another 4 or 5 will come forward. By the end of the month, about 25 will be out. No illegal funds have been obtained. 17 MPs met the President today and obtained funds worth 600 to 700 million rupees. They are dedicated to the President. MPs of your side are dedicated to President Ranil Wickremesinghe. Funds had been given to 4 Gampaha district MPs and not MP Rajakaruna. That is wrong. The leader of the TNA was telling today that the President has given them funds and that they will carry out development activities using those funds. The TNA has joined hands with the President for the development of the North. MPs of the East have also been given funds. The Parliament Act number 6 of 2023 was brought to establish a budget office. Now, without setting up budget offices under that act, this has been secretly submitted to the Parliament, so this is a big problem. So the President has given funds to 17 opposition MPs as well as government MPs who voted against the budget. Other MPs of Kurunagar who got the funds are carrying out development projects.
MP Harshana Rajakaruna raised this issue.
මේ වර්ෂයේදීත් විමධ්‍යගත මුදල් ලබා දීම කටයුතු කරලා තියෙනවා. නමුත් මේ
This year decentralized funds have again been allocated, but the process has been extremely unfair. Some individuals have received 100 million, others 50 million, while many of us in the opposition, including myself, Mujibur Rahman and Buddhika Patirana, have not received a single cent. Honorable Speaker, I must bring this to your attention. This has been an ongoing issue for several months, despite discussions yesterday.
ඊයේ කතා කරත් මේක දැන් මාස ගාණක් ඉඳන් වෙන දෙයක්. විමධ්‍යගත කියලා මුදලක් වෙන් කරේ නැහැ. දිස්ත්‍රික් සංවර්ධන විමධ්‍යගත.
Honorable Speaker, no funds have been earmarked under the guise of decentralization for district development. Projects are now handled through rural committees. The opposition claimed that the previous allocations were used by members of parliament for their own agendas rather than meeting public needs. To address this, rural committees were established to propose projects which are then submitted to the district coordination committee for approval. As a result, even opposition MPs have had their projects approved. In Gampaha, for example, this system is working. I can say with certainty that the accusations made by these individuals are baseless and misleading.
An attempt to include Sri Lankan youth to the list that enables employment in South Korea for a sum of 41 rupees was revealed in Parliament.
රජයේ මැදිහත් වීමෙන් ඊශ්‍රායලයේ කොරියාව වගේ රටවල් වලට කට්ටිය යවනවා. මේ වෙනකොටත් ප්‍රාදේශීය වශයෙන් ඉන්න
The government has intervened to send groups to countries like Israel and South Korea. Currently, there are complaints that local politicians, especially former council chairpersons from rural regions, are collecting around 41,000 rupees, citing that youth will be sent to South Korea for jobs. You may have the information. We formed the government and I have about 150,000 people with my constituency within the water-based 6.9 million. Therefore, I must say that we received no funds from the decentralized budget, not even a rupee, nor did we get any application forms to send people abroad. If such forms aren't provided to members of parliament, we demand a transparent mechanism to evaluate and facilitate these overseas opportunities. We believe we have certain rights and privileges. We are simply asking for those rights and privileges to be granted to us.
අපටත් යම්කිසි අයිතියක් වරප්‍රසාදයක් තියෙනවා. අපි ඉල්ලන්නේ අන්නේ අයිතිය වරප්‍රසාදය දෙන්න.
ආණ්ඩු පක්ෂයේ විතරක් නෙවෙයි විපක්ෂයේ മന്ത്രിවරුන්ටත් එහෙම වරප්‍රසාද ලබා ගැනීමේ අයිතියක් තියෙනවා කියලා.
Not only members of the ruling party but also opposition MPs have the right to obtain such privileges. You believe in this principle, which is why certain opposition members have met with the president to discuss the needs of the country and request funds and resources. Now let me answer this clearly. There are people in this country who are willing to develop it. I will respond to the questions asked. Speaker, I cannot answer two separate questions at one time. I will provide answers one by one to the questions asked. Yes, as a member of parliament representing the people, I have the right to serve the people who elected me. Please allow me to speak without interruptions. As MPs elected by the public, we have the right to serve them. Therefore, this parliament is now in the process of changing the entire legal system of the country, and with the necessary cooperation, we will implement these changes to promote development activities. According to your belief, we have provided the opportunity for public representatives to gather information about every area and its deficiencies. They have been allowed to make recommendations. I have mentioned twice in this parliament that any MP can submit recommendations to us. Accordingly, many opposition MPs have submitted their recommendations to us.
බහුතරයක් විපක්ෂයේ മന്ത്രിවරුත් අපිට ගෙනල්ලා බාර දීලා තියෙනවා.
Access to clean water and quality medical facilities are often taken for granted in urban Sri Lanka. However, for many communities in rural Sri Lanka, these basic necessities can be a constant struggle.
The Anamadu-based hospital, a lifeline for countless villagers in Puttalam, is a prime example, and this is their story.
Imagine a life where clean water is a luxury and the rumble of a machine keeping someone alive is more of a worry than a comfort. This is the harsh reality for many in Puttalam, Sri Lanka. This is the Anamadu-based hospital. While it serves as a lifeline for countless villagers, it is the only medical facility for kilometers. Yet, it struggles to meet the needs of the community due to a lack of resources. A critical issue is the state of the dialysis unit, essential for a large population suffering from kidney disease. But today marks a turning point. Governor has stepped forward to address the hospital's most pressing needs. A foundation stone was laid, marking the beginning of the construction of a new medical-grade water purification plant. Renovations will also begin on the dialysis unit, transforming it into a modern and functional space for improved patient care. Thanks to a significant contribution from Next Manufacturing Private Limited, these crucial upgrades are finally possible.
Looking around the facility, I can see that the project that we're inaugurating today will truly make a significant difference to the not only to the hospital itself, but to the wider community at large. This is actually our third water project where we'll be delivering a reverse osmosis water treatment plant to the local area. And each time I come, I'm absolutely sort of humbled by the opportunity to come and sort of have a look around the local area and see what a real difference it could make to the long-term future health benefits of the community. And I really look forward to returning in maybe 45 or 50 days to officially declare the project open, and as normal to have maybe the first glass of water if it's drinking.
Healthcare is not a privilege, it is a necessity, and this will open the door to quality healthcare for countless people and families in Puttalam.
The UN Human Rights Chief has warned that Sri Lanka's poorest bear brunt of economic crisis. He was speaking at the 56th session of the Human Rights Council.
While Sri Lanka's macroeconomic situation has improved, The impacts of the economic crisis, together with associated austerity measures, are affecting the poorest and already marginalized groups the most. Between 21 and 23, the poverty rate doubled from 13.1 to 25.9% and is expected to remain at such levels over the next few years. Globally, inequality has seen the largest increase in 3 decades, as poorer countries took a bigger economic hit from the COVID-19 pandemic compared to richer countries. According to Oxfam, the wealth of the world's 5 richest billionaires has more than doubled since the start of this decade, while 60% of humanity has grown poorer. 4.8 million people are poorer than they were in 2019. And the wealth gap between men and women globally, $100 trillion. We are a far cry from the 2030 agenda's promise to reach those furthest behind first. Almost half of humanity, some 3.3 billion people, live in countries where governments spend more on servicing their debts than investing in health and education systems for their people.
Newsfirst with the people. The Election Commission will be empowered to proclaim the date for the presidential election in 28 days.
The Executive Council of Sri Lanka Freedom Party unanimously decided to appoint Minister Nimal Siripala de Silva as the party chairman. MP Duminda Disanayake said that he was appointed to the post of SLFP General Secretary.
The Executive Council of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party met this evening at the SLFP headquarters.
Starting tomorrow, the party will be reformed and the necessary instructions were given to the organizers of the party. The party will see a full reform process and the grassroots of the party, including youth and women movements, will be empowered. There are no 2 factions, there is only one faction, and the SLFP is here.
The restraining order preventing former President Maithripala Sirisena from holding the chairmanship of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party was extended until the 1st of August by Colombo Chief District Judge Sandun Vithana. This order was issued by the Colombo District Court based on a plaint filed by former President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga. The judge instructed both parties to submit written objections regarding the matter by the 1st of August or earlier. Meanwhile, the Colombo District Court also decided not to issue a restraining order against the executive committee meeting called by Minister Nimal Siripala de Silva, who served as acting chairman of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. The court resolved to issue notices to the defendants and schedule the next hearing for the 3rd of July. This order followed the consideration of a complaint filed by a group including Hector Bethmage, an electorate organizer for the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. A new political movement named People Struggle Alliance was launched. Former convener of the Inter-University Students Federation and National Executive Committee member of the People Struggle Movement, Vasantha Mudalige, Secretary of the Youth for Change Movement, Lairu Veerasekara, National Organizer of the Federation of Media Workers Unions, Tarindu Uduwaragedara, Attorney at Law Nuwan Bopage, among other civil activists, were in attendance for the launch. The Frontline Socialist Party, New Democratic Marxist-Leninist Party and the Socialist People's Alliance are among the members of the new political movement. The new alliance was officially launched following the presentation of the Exit IMF concept.
අපි යෝජනා කරන ප්‍රධාන කාරණේ තමයි exit IMF උපක්‍රමය නැත්නම් exit IMF strategy කියන එක.
Our main proposal focuses on an IMF exit strategy. The first step for Sri Lanka when exiting the IMF is to undertake a comprehensive debt reclassification and restructuring. For this, Sri Lanka must seek guidance from global experts, particularly those from the Committee for the Abolition of Illegitimate Debt, also known as CADTM. This organization can provide clear and valuable insights. Moreover, it is crucial to conduct an audit to identify and address substantial amount of illegitimate debt within our total debt. Additionally, we must serve our dependency on the IMF and initiate direct negotiations with our creditors, especially China. It is imperative that we do not rush to repay the debt immediately. The strategy for Sri Lanka should be to stabilize the economy first. Once the economy reaches a certain level of stability, we can agree to repay a portion of our export earnings as debt payments. The political landscape of this country is extremely chaotic, complex and troubled. No party has yet presented a viable solution or a realistic plan to reform the economic and political system. We believe this gap needs to be filled. It is our opinion that the country should reject the measures imposed by the IMF as they only further sink us into economic hardship. Instead, we should have an internal economic discussion to develop an exit plan from the IMF's grip. Looking ahead, we aim to steer Sri Lanka towards systematic change and redirect its political trajectory. With a focus on the upcoming presidential and general elections, we are forming a political coalition called the People's Struggle Alliance.
For decades, our country's economy has revolved around the concentration of wealth in the hands of a few, while the masses of this country have been deprived and dispossessed of the wealth. We want to put forward a political program. We have put forward a political program as to how our country can exit from the IMF program after 65 years. We have been under the IMF rule for 65 years. This is not the first time we have gone to the IMF. So we have put forward a program as to how to come out of the clutches of the IMF and regain economic sovereignty. We have put forward a program whereby the minorities in this country, the nationalities of this country, we have recognized 4 nationalities in this country. And we have put forward a radical solution to the national question which has plagued this country. We have put forward a model of power sharing between the centre and the regions which has never been discussed before. And most importantly, we have put forward a proposal where after decades of concentration of wealth in the hands of the few, we are demanding for a radical redistribution of the wealth.
The Abhinava Nivahal Peramuna announced a presidential candidate.
Dostara Oshal Herat Mahatma Tamai Api Anagata Dhanadhi Mathurna Yasana Idabatana Ape Apekshakitama.
Oshal Herat is our presidential candidate. I would like to hand over the official letter confirming the same. I wish you all the best.
All the best.
I will start collecting my first vote from today onwards. Do not expect me to go from house to house with a large crowd. Do not expect me to bring in large crowds of people in buses to carry out a poster campaign and to speak on a stage in front of all of them. I won't be doing any of them. However, I will clearly communicate what I need to say. Eradicating drug trade from the society completely can be very hard. However, if I become the president, I assure that I will drag those drug kingpins in parliament to the streets and will see through to the end of this drug trade. I will use my presidential powers in the maximum possible capacity.
Today, the parents of Sri Lankan youth detained in cyber crime camps in Myanmar visited the Ministry of Foreign Affairs once again.
Disturbing reports have emerged regarding Sri Lankan citizens forcibly detained in Myanmar. Parents of these individuals are urgently calling for their rescue from an area controlled by an armed group along the Thai border. The situation came to light during a meeting between the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs Tharaka Balasuriya and concerned families. According to the parents, the Sri Lankan youth were promised employment opportunities related to IT but were instead taken to Myanmar against their will. Recent days have seen heightened distress as the detained group of young people faced severe torture. State Minister Tharaka Balasuriya, who recently conducted an official visit to Myanmar, assured that some of the Sri Lankans held in those camps would be released in the near future.
ජනාධිපතිතුමාගෙන් විදේශ කටයුතු අමාත්‍යාංශය ඇමතිතුමාගෙන් අපි ඉල්ලන්නේ අපේ ළමයි කවදාවත්
We are requesting the President, Foreign Ministry and the Minister to somehow bring back our children. We cannot endure this pain anymore. We have met every possible person in authority. We are pleading from the President to consider our pleas and bring them all back home.
මේ සියලුම දෙනා අරගෙන දෙන්න අපිට බලාපොරොත්තුවක් නෑ අපේ දරුවන්ටත් බලාපොරොත්තුවක් නෑ මෙහෙම කරන්න එපා රාජ්‍ය ඇමතිතුමාට අපි ඉල්ලීමක්
We request the State Minister to make attempts to bring our children back. They want us to be patient. I have been patient for 22 months. I'm suffering with diabetes and I have to take the early morning training. I fainted while coming here. Why can't the ministers do what is necessary?
මල්ලන්ට බැරි මේ අපේ ඉල්ලීම ඉෂ්ට කරන්න
The Organization of Professional Associations of Sri Lanka organized a forum on combating fraud and corruption on public procurement through legislation. Members of the National Procurement Commission, Sirasa, commented on public procurement.
The bidders or general public can complain to National Procurement Commission regarding the malpractices. Then we will take actions accordingly. There are a number of guidelines we have identified to issue. Number one is very important guideline is guideline manual, 2 books, goods, works and services. It was already drafted and we are waiting for the cabinet approval. Public procurement covers 20 to 30% of GDP. That is across all countries in the world. In Sri Lanka it is around 20%. But another point, procurement budget is 15 to 70%. What is our national budget? This year, 7,000 billions. What is the procurement portion of the budget? About 70%. Other than the salaries and emoluments, etc., small payment, all expenditures are procurement. If you take health ministry, education ministry, defense ministry, etc., there are billions of procurement. So whatever it is, procurement budget in Sri Lanka is more than 2,000 billion or 3,000 billion.
Sri Lanka's proposed Economic Transformation Act was taken for discussion at a briefing organized by the All-Union Alliance of the POI. 2 President's Councils commented on the legal implications of the bill.
All-Union Alliance of the Board of Investment had organized a discussion on the impact of the proposed Economic Transformation Act on the investment landscape of the country.
But I don't think this bill has made any attempt to look at the problems that we have been going through and to how to and propose ways and means of getting out of this rut that we are in today. Who is going to do your custom facilitation? Who is going to do your the managing of the zone? They all have to be set up in any law. There has to be a transitional period, but this law has no transitional period. No other country that are having this kind of investment zones are charging taxes, are proposing to charge taxes the way we are now. We must be realistic. We want the investments. Without investment, this country cannot think of a future.
In the aftermath of the 2022 crisis, we are once again at a situation where we have to invent a different way to deal with the crises we are facing. The same solutions or the existing systems will certainly not answer some of the challenges we are facing, because if they did, we may not have faced the 2022 economic crisis. So you need a different approach to deal with the crisis and hopefully come out of it. I sometimes feel that this law tries to bring in some kind of sort of a few pieces together, right? So we have to assume that the decision makers who are part of this system will have those macro level markers and try to work towards those. But the problem is, it is not their sole responsibility. There are other institutions like the central bank who will play a significant role in achieving those markers. So that's one of the first things that I see in this act, where it gives a certain indicator. Now, I'm not for a moment trying to put a positive spin on it, but I think it's a good thing for us to know that there is a target. Whether it's achievable or not is a different matter. At least there is a target set. Join the international markets and value chains, and that way to enhance our economic well-being.
Day 27 of the third phase of the LOLC Divi Savia program, which is being carried out for the betterment of Sri Lanka's future generation, got underway today.
Under the Divi Savia program, exercise books and stationery equipment required for a year are distributed free of charge to government schools with less than 150 students. Today's program was centered around the Kinya and Kantale zonal education officers of the Trincomalee district. Accordingly, school bags and stationery equipment were donated to students of Akbogama Vidyalaya, Aruf Muslim Vidyalaya, Gamanupura Vijita Vidyalaya, Idiman Al-Minhaj Vidyalaya, Abdul Hamid Vidyalaya and Sams Vidyalaya. School bags and stationery equipment were also distributed to students at the Kenya Zonal Education Office this morning. The LOLC Divi Savia program continues to forge ahead for the future generation of Sri Lanka.
Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's public assertion that Biden administration is broadly withholding military support for Israel amid its ongoing war with Hamas in Gaza prompted confusion and frustration across Washington on Tuesday as Biden administration officially flatly denied the allegations. Netanyahu made these accusations in a video speaking in English. He says he told Secretary of State Antony Blinken during the US diplomat's recent visit to Israel that it was inconceivable that in the past few months, the administration has been withholding weapons and ammunition. In the Prime Minister's retelling of the conversation, Blinken gave assurances that the Biden administration was working day and night to remove bottlenecks. Russian President Vladimir Putin and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un began official events on Wednesday at the Kim Il-sung Square in Pyongyang as the two leaders pledged to develop their nation's ties. Kim embraced Putin on his arrival at Pyongyang's airport for a rare visit in the early hours of Wednesday and shared pent-up inmost thoughts as the leaders shared a ride to the state guest house in Pyongyang. Russian media photographs showed soldiers and a large crowd of civilians gathered at the square by the Taedong River running through the capital, including children holding balloons and giant portraits of the two leaders with national flags adorning the Grand People's Study Hall. Putin, who arrived before dawn, is on his first trip to the North Korean capital in 24 years, a visit likely to reshape decades of Russia and North Korea relations at a time when both countries face international isolation. Gaza officials demand Israel to release 310 health workers who have been subjected to torture and call for an international investigation to reveal the fate of dozens of Palestinian health personnel whom it says Israel forces have kidnapped from Gaza's health facilities. The call comes amid reports that Dr. Iyad al-Rantisi, aged 53, the head of the women's section of Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza city of Beit Lahia, died during interrogation in an Israel prison in November. There has been a drastic deterioration of aid flows to the south of Gaza in recent weeks, causing panic and starvation. At least 37,372 people have been killed and 85,452 injured in Israel's war on Gaza since the 7th of October. The revised death toll in Israel from the Hamas-led attacks stands at 1,139, with dozens of people still held captive in Gaza.
The Sri Lankan team that participated in the 2024 T20 Cricket World Cup arrived in the island this morning.
The Sri Lankan team competed in Group D in the preliminary round of the Men's T20 World Cup. Sri Lanka ranked third in Group D after only winning one match in the preliminary round, thus missing out on the Super 8 qualification.
I don't believe a single tournament loss necessitates a team overhaul. We had a chance to win if we had performed better. We would never intentionally lose a tournament.
රන්සික මහත්තයා කියලා තිබුණා යා මෙහෙම අනාවක කියලා තිබුණා මේ කණ්ඩායමට මේ ඉරනවා අත්තේ කියලා. ඒ කියන්නේ මොකද?
වෙලාවට එන්න ප්‍රැක්ටිස් වලට එන්න රෑගමන් යනවා ඒ වගේ කතා ගොඩක් කියලා තිබුණා.
මෙතෙක් කාලයකට මම හිතන්නේ එයා අපිත් එක්ක කණ්ඩායමත් එක්ක.
I don't think he has ever stayed in the same hotel as the cricket team. I don't think he should say that we have disciplinary issues simply because we lost a match. People can say a lot when we lose matches. However, I believe we lost the match due to our performance on that day, not because of anything he has mentioned. An external party can say anything. However, nothing of that sort happened. As the captain, the team was well disciplined with a curfew also imposed. Unfortunately, we couldn't make it to the Super 8.
ඕන දෙයක් කියන්න පුළුවන් හැබැයි එහෙම දෙයක් වුණේ නැහැ. මොකද නායකයා විදියට සහ කණ්ඩායම අපි මේ පාර අපි කර්ෆියු දාලා අපි ඒ විදියට අපේ ඩිසිප්ලින් අපි හදාගෙන හිටියා. ඉතින් අවාසනාවට අපි තරඟාවලියෙන් ඉවත් වුණා ඉක්මනට.
And with that, wrap up news for tonight.
Thank you for watching. Good night.